Tonight, the search for a missing truck driver in Ontario comes to an end. How police in this province played a part.
It's an outcome that no one expected. After nearly 2 weeks of searching for truck driver Brian Lush, Ontario police say that they have found his body. But it is not in Ontario. I'm Colleen Connors and I'll have the latest. That's just ahead.
A Shahid's mother wants the community to do something about the number of stray dogs after one attacked her young daughter.
Newfoundland and Labrador Federation of Agriculture is hosting a Women in Agriculture event all across the island this week. I'm Jeremy Eaton, and I'll tell you all about it coming up.
This is CBC Here and Now.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. We begin with a shocking twist in the already complicated search for a missing Stephenville truck driver. The Ontario Provincial Police confirmed late yesterday that Brian Lush's body had been found, but CBC has since learned that the man's body was discovered here on the island aboard his own truck. Here and Now's Colleen Connors has the details.
A devastating and shocking discovery when Brian Lush's moving truck returned to Newfoundland and Labrador yesterday morning. The Ontario police confirm his remains were discovered in the truck's trailer, despite his rig being a key piece of evidence in the search and the last place he was seen. It was nearly 2 weeks ago when Lush of Coldbrook near Stephenville was reported missing in the Summerston area in Ontario. The 51-year-old father of 3 was a trucker for a moving company, expected home Friday, April 26th. He was last seen near his tractor trailer near Summerston on the 24th. His keys, cell phone, ball hat, all still inside. The OPP said they had as many resources as possible searching for Lush, including search and rescue, helicopters, drones, and dog teams. Surveillance video from the gas station where he was parked shows him getting out of his truck and walking around the front of the truck. He was not seen again. Late Monday, the Ontario Provincial Police confirmed Lush's body was found. The police news release did not say where, leaving open the idea that it was somewhere in Ontario around that truck stop. This photo is from Monday morning. It shows Lush's rig in the parking lot of the Basques RCMP. Now OPP confirm his body was found in this province. While foul play is not suspected, this development raises questions about the early search for Lush. Was his truck searched? And if so, how was his body missed? The Ontario police say they are conducting a review. Colleen Connors, CBC News, Corner Brook.
Now we have an update from the local RCMP on this story. It was officers here on the island who found Lush's body in the back of that moving truck after it arrived in Basques. Police say the chief medical examiner is investigating, but that initial evidence points to no foul play. Well, the fate of CBS lawyer Robert Regular will be determined next month. Regular is facing 4 counts of sexual assault and 1 count of sexual interference. The charges involve one complainant who was 12 at the time of the first alleged assault 2 decades ago. Regular has denied the allegations. Closing arguments came at Supreme Court in St. John's. The defense argued the complainant had too many inconsistencies in her testimony to be considered truthful. The Crown said those inconsistencies were peripheral and didn't detract from the overall testimony. A decision is expected June 27th. Well, a Shahid's mother wants the community to do something about stray dogs after one attacked her young daughter. The First Nation says it's a complicated issue, but as Here and Now's Heidi Adder reports, the mother worries more children will end up in hospital if nothing changes.
Mary Lou Nuna and her daughter are back home after being at the hospital in Happy Valley Goose Bay. Earlier this month, the 6-year-old was playing outside when a dog attacked, biting her repeatedly.
For me as a mom, it's really hard to see my own kid bitten by the dog, and it's really hard. I was crying and I was on Facebook Live and to let everybody know about in our community with the dogs because it's very dangerous.
Nuna says stray and loose dogs are a long-time problem in the community, but the Shaaji Innu First Nation says it's complicated. Director of Operations Gregory Pastishi says the community's opinion is split on whether to let the dogs roam or round them up.
We're being told off to leave the dogs alone and whatever, and it's sometimes you feel like you're stuck with what are you supposed to do then? Like, are we supposed to help the community? We're trying to help the community as much as we can.
Pastishi hopes the First Nation will pass a bylaw forcing people to tie their dogs up on their property. He says there are meetings ongoing about how to do that. But Nuna is worried there may be more attacks in the meantime, as more children play outdoors this summer.
I really want something to be done, like to remove those dogs, because they're really hungry and it's really sad looking at those dogs, and they're eating the garbage.
The First Nation has also been working with the Chinook Project to control the dog population. Pastishi says they are working to bring a free spay and neuter clinic to the reserve next summer. Heidi Adder, CBC News, Shaaji Innu First Nation.
Well, in other news, government and airports are trying to attract new airlines and new routes to make it easier to come and go from this province. But one thing may be holding them back: high fees. Here now's Peter Cowan explains.
Low-cost carrier Flair has been flying to places like Halifax, Charlottetown, and St. John, New Brunswick for 3 years now. But the first flight to St. John's only came this week. One of the reasons, says Flair, is the high fees the airport here charges.
So it is absolutely a factor when we're making our route decisions. I think we probably would have served the St. John's market sooner if the fees had been lower, but we've got a good partnership going now with the St. John's Airport, and we're looking to continue growing here.
Let's show you just how much the airport improvement fee can add onto the price of a ticket. Let's say you're able to snag one of the $134 round-trip tickets from St. John's to Waterloo. The airline only gets $41 of that price, so $20 each way. Waterloo Airport collects $15. St. John's Airport gets $42, more than the airline. The rest goes to taxes and security fees. And St. John's has the highest fees in Atlantic Canada. For example, Charlottetown charges $20, Halifax $35. And across the country, only Prince Rupert, BC charges more. Everyone else has lower fees. An industry analyst who teaches aviation management says if you compare with a place like Abbotsford, where they don't charge that fee, you'll see the difference in ticket prices.
Flair has been flying $19 fares from Abbotsford to Kelowna, and $29 fares to Calgary. Out of St. John's, you can't do that. You basically, before you even start charging the passenger for a flight, you're already got a high AIF already in place.
The airport defends the high fees, saying it has higher costs than other places, costs it needs to cover.
We're an island, and that kind of changes the game a little bit. And not only are we an island, we're an island with a winter season. So in terms of operations, we have some extra layers there and that's the reason why we have a difference in fees from some other airports.
But that doesn't explain the airport improvement fee. It can't cover operational costs, only capital upgrades. The airport says in the last 25 years, it spent more than $300 million on those upgrades, like this recent expansion to the terminal, better instrument landing systems, or on tap for this year, repaving one runway. And the fees almost never go down.
It's like a drug, right? Keep getting it because you can get it, and if you can raise the price, you can, and you will. And so it's addictive to the airport operator. They like it.
Passengers and airlines may not like it, but since airports have to cover their costs without ongoing government help, it's not likely to go anywhere. Peter Cowan, CBC News, St. John's.
When I joined here 44 years ago, I was always told that big boys don't cry.
The sounds, the smells, everything we see at a crash scene, we take that with us.
A first responder says the job takes a traumatic toll. Still to come, we head to Conception Bay North to hear more about his push for better mental health support.
Well, today was a little bit cloudy and some rain for parts of the province. And here in St. John's, we can see the fog monster just out there at the moment. And those winds, it's down to about 4 kilometers per hour. So it's not moving much. That fog isn't moving much at the moment. But we're currently sitting at 9 degrees. And visibility elsewhere across the island and across St. John's at unlimited. So what we have on the go right now is some cloud cover moving through, a few showers as well. But we did see that clearing for the west and south coast, and it is continuing to do so. Right now, we're even starting to see some clearing for the western portion of the Avalon as well. And as far as what the temperatures are compared to where we were sitting yesterday, have gone down for most of Labrador, and temperatures across the west coast of the island and St. Lawrence up 10 degrees from where you were sitting yesterday. Bonavista, you're down about 2 degrees. So as we head through the next couple of days, we do have some unsettled weather to get through, and I'll talk all about it when I come back.
Thanks, Ashley. Well, the province's Federation of Agriculture wants to see more women entering the field of farming. For the first time in nearly 20 years, it's hosting events right across the island to hear from more women with lived experience. Here now's Jeremy Eaton swung by the first session held today in St. John's.
Work pressures, and we have the time pressures, and we have multitasking.
It's not just farmers in this room. There are producers, researchers, veterinarians.
We're bringing people together to discuss the achievements of women in agriculture and those who support women in agriculture, and also to identify some challenges and barriers that we face today, and to hopefully have a discussion to identify some priorities going forward.
Brenda Aylward runs her family farm in Port Kerwin and has been in the industry her entire life. It wasn't until the pandemic, though, that she started speaking up.
Concerns that we saw with food shortages, sustainability and food self-sufficiency here on the island. So more and more people were getting into raising their own food, and more people getting into supporting local. So that was kind of when I started to feel the support of the communities, and it made me want to get more involved and reach out and get more women involved.
Terry Lynn Robbins owns a farm in Deer Lake. She wants to change the perception people have of women in the industry.
And I think it's about helping to get rid of the myths that are out there. My husband and I both own our farm, but I'm quite often looked at as a farmer's wife. A lot of times when we get introduced, we're introduced as Farmer Bill and Miss Terry Lynn. I want to work towards getting rid of that because I am Farmer Terry Lynn.
This session is the first of 3 this week.
The last 10 years, I've been sitting on the executive with the Federation of Agriculture and trying to find those supports out there, find other women in agriculture who will support me specifically as a woman in agriculture.
This session is just a start to get the conversation going, compiling experiences shared here and figuring out what is working and what isn't.
Very proud and very hopeful that this is going to be something that is going to continue, and that the discussions are going to continue, and that we're going to really start to see more and more women become involved in agriculture.
How do we want to support each other? That's really what it's all about. We know we want support, we know we want to support each other, but how do we want to support each other, and what does that look like on a provincial scale?
The next session starts tomorrow in Gander and then on to Corner Brook on Thursday. Jeremy Eaton, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, it seems Mallard Cottage restaurant in St. John's isn't going anywhere. Late last month, CBC reported that Canada's National Development Bank was pushing the Kitty Vitty restaurant into bankruptcy. Well, today, the owners say that is not happening. According to owner Brian McIntosh, the recent financial issues have been fully resolved. He expects to reopen the doors to Mallard Cottage later this month in anticipation of the busy summer season. The Department of Veterans Affairs says the remains of an unknown Newfoundland soldier will arrive in St. John's at the end of this month. The unknown soldier will be laid to rest at the National War Memorial on July 1st. This year marks the 100th anniversary of the memorial, which is undergoing a multi-million-dollar makeover. Veterans Affairs says the remains will be flown from northern France to St. John's on May 25th. The hearse will take the remains through St. John's, passing locations with First World War significance along the way. The remains will lie in state at Confederation Building from June 28th to the 30th before being reinterred at the War Memorial. The federal government has tabled a bill aimed at countering foreign interference.
What I can say to you is that when you have things such as a ransomware attack on things like I believe it was Newfoundland's healthcare system that's crippling a hospital and particular institutions, and if it's being orchestrated by a foreign entity, we are targeting that. We are responding to that as we should to make sure our laws are supple enough to deal with the challenges of today, not the challenges of 1952.
Well, as Canada's Justice Minister Arif Virani talking to reporters yesterday, he says the new bill will help stop other countries from meddling in Canada's elections. If passed, Bill C-70 will introduce a new foreign interference offense, shake up how Canada's spy agency collects and shares intelligence, and launch a foreign influence transparency registry. Now, the feds say it will also help stop incidents like the 2021 cyber attack against the Newfoundland and Labrador healthcare system.
These are talking about naval vessels, etc. We're talking about things such as attacks on hospitals, attacks on bridges, etc. So that's important. But secondly, it's also important that we uphold what wasn't in place in 1952, which is the Charter, right? Section 2B entrenches your rights to lawful expression and freedom of speech and peaceful assembly. That's critical for Canadians at all times, especially now. So what we're saying is by specifying that is that it's going to always be calibrated. Another safeguard that's in place is that in order to proceed with what can be a sensitive issue that relates to people's constitutional rights, you can't proceed with the prosecution without getting the consent of the Attorney General that's applicable. So it may be in the case of the Ambassador Bridge for the consent of the Provincial Attorney General in Ontario. If it related to national infrastructure, it might come across my desk.
Well, back in this province, Harbour Grace firefighter Paul Ash has spent decades helping people in dire situations. Now he's speaking out about how those traumatic events affect first responders, and he's pushing for more mental health resources. Here Now's Daryl Roberts has more.
Paul Ash has had a long career as a first responder, first as a firefighter in St. John's, and now as assistant chief at the Harbour Grace Fire Brigade. Over those years, he's seen a lot.
I wish my eyes could forget what I've saw there, and any first responder would tell you the same thing. It takes a toll, it comes back, you know, you're bringing some of it home, and if you don't recognize the symptoms, then it's, you know, and you let it snowball, it accumulates a lot more, and it causes a lot more stress for your family, your workplace, and all sorts of things.
Ash says he was overloaded with traumatic memories.
It's kind of hard to talk about. Back about 10 years ago, I crashed on Christmas Eve, and my son said to me, he said, "Dad, you have to seek help."
He did, from counselors, from family, even from pets, and it all helped.
This one right here is our combination tool.
Ash isn't alone. A short distance away in Bay Roberts, this is the kind of life-saving equipment the fire department uses when responding to emergencies. But the chief says those same volunteers need help with their mental health. And right now, there's no employee wellness programs.
We're doing what we can with what we got.
PTSD is common in firefighters, police, and paramedics in Canada, though, according to Public Safety Canada, no one knows the full extent of the problem. RCMP Corporal Jolene Garland says traumatic events, like crashes, are hard to process.
Post-traumatic stress disorder is a real thing amongst first responders, and police are no different when it falls into that bracket of health. You know, the sights, the sounds, the smells, everything we see at a crash scene, we take that with us oftentimes. It comes home with you at night. It can linger, far beyond when the crash happened itself.
The president of the Provincial Paramedic Association says there are many reasons why first responders struggle with mental health.
Systemic issues within the system that's causing stress to individuals, that stress continues to build up, which is then causing mental health issues. It could be issues within someone's personal life that is then spilling over into their professional life that's causing mental health issues. There's a number of different things.
The provincial government runs a warm line for first responders through its Bridge the Gap service. It runs 7 days a week from 12 p.m. to 12 a.m. and the number is 1-709-237-4180. But the province is ending that project at the end of the summer, pending a review. In their most recent budget, the provincial government dedicated just over $500,000 to municipal fire services. But Ash wants the government to spend more money on mental health resources for volunteer firefighters in communities like his. And he wants to put an end to the stigma surrounding mental health.
When I joined here 44 years ago, I was always told that big boys don't cry. Well, big boys do cry.
Daryl Roberts, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, taking a look at the current satellite right now and radar, we do have some showers working their way across the province, some snow up across Labrador as well. We'll get into all the details coming up.
This weather update is brought to you by the Healthcare Foundation Home Lottery. The early bird prize deadline is midnight Friday, May 10th. Order tickets now at hcfhomelottery.ca.
Noticed there was a little bit of sun this afternoon, Ashley, that I got to enjoy a little bit.
It peaked out just for a little while.
We'll take it.
We'll take it. We will take anything at this point. But there were lots of other parts of the province that did see some nice sunshine this afternoon. Let's take a look at what's going on out there across the province. We've got an area of low pressure that is sinking south. That's what's causing all these showers across the island. And in behind that, we've got some cooler air, which is playing a role in the type of precipitation we're seeing up across Labrador. Most of you that are in that northerly flow across coastal areas of Labrador are seeing some snow, and we'll continue to do that as we head through tonight. But yeah, most of that warmer air is just south of that and across the island as well. Temperatures today, hot spot was Badger at 16 degrees this afternoon. You can see very variable across the island, anywhere from 5 to 16 degrees. Labrador as well, 11 degrees in Mary's Harbour, 12 in Happy Valley Goose Bay, but we do have some of that colder air, 1 in Nain and 2 in Makkovik this afternoon. Now, taking a look at what's going on as far as that satellite is concerned, still lots of onshore cloud cover, I should say, up across Labrador, and some showers are working their way across the island as well. Most of the heavier showers that we saw earlier today have moved offshore, but there are some that are starting to show up on the radar right now, and really they'll be isolated through the night tonight, and same thing through central. We've got a heavier band of showers that moved through earlier, but there are some heavier showers that are starting to show up on the radar there through parts of the west coast, Green Bay, White Bay area, and some through central. So generally this is going to stick around tonight, the potential for some showers sticking around. Temperature is still pretty nice out there, still 16 degrees in Badger, 11 in Gander at the moment. And we're down to about 9 degrees in Happy Valley Goose Bay. So you are going to see your temperatures drop even more tonight. And up across Labrador, this is when we're going to start to see some of that the chances of some wet snow. Now, you're only going to drop to about 2 degrees tonight in Happy Valley Goose Bay, so you will likely see some snow. It may mix with some rain at times, but overall it will be an unsettled evening and overnight across the island. And most should just see some showers, but in the higher elevations, potentially on the west coast, we could pick up a few flurries, but it should be in the higher elevations. Overnight tonight, temperatures will hover around 0 degrees for the northern peninsula, 2 to about 5 degrees for most of the island, except Port aux Basques will hover around 0. Around 1 or 2 for central and coastal areas of Labrador, except -2 and -3 for the north and west. Expect this snow potential to stick around, especially towards the coast of Labrador. You could be picking up 5, maybe 10 centimeters of snow by the time that's all said and done. Closer to the water, though, or closer to the shore, this should fall as rain. And we'll likely see some flurries linger for Happy Valley Goose Bay. Could pick up a couple centimeters as well. Most of the island seeing the chance of some showers tomorrow, along with cloud cover. But by the time we get into late afternoon, early evening, it does look like parts of the south coast, maybe even eastern Newfoundland, could clear out for a little bit of time anyway. As far as our temperatures are concerned for tomorrow, we are looking at daytime highs again, very variable, depending on where you are and the way the winds are. So we do have a more northerly component wind, which is going to keep your temperatures cool towards the coast, the northeast coast. More of an easterly, or rather westerly flow for the west coast, south coast, so that means temperatures 11, 12, 13 degrees. And then as far as Labrador is concerned, you're still looking at your temperatures 1 or 2 degrees for the mid coast, otherwise between 4 and 7 degrees. Most of you in the southeast will be seeing some showers tomorrow. Mary's Harbour will hover around 7 degrees. But again, don't be surprised to see a couple centimeters of snow for Happy Valley Goose Bay. It will not stick around because your temperatures will be above 0. And even more so as we head towards the end of the week, where temperatures are really going to start to warm up. We'll get into those details coming up.
Sort of the only interesting thing that's ever happened in curling.
Well, have you ever heard of Broomgate? A new CBC podcast is diving into the curling accessory that led to the sport's biggest scandal. Brad Gushu plays a part too. That's next.
Bonus.
Well, the sport of curling doesn't have a reputation for being controversial or scandalous, but back in 2015, a new kind of broom sent the sport into a spiral, caused a raucous debate among the curling community, and even caught the attention of one late-night talk show host in the U.S.
A controversial prototype can put an extreme curl on a rock using a so-called directional fabric on the brush.
Performance-enhancing brooms. Folks, this is one sports controversy you can't just sweep under the rug. I bristle at the idea. I try to brush off the allegations all you want, but this sort of thing doesn't happen in a vacuum.
Well, a new CBC podcast has just been released exploring what some say is the biggest scandal in curling history. And yes, our very own Brad Guzhu plays a big role in this story. The podcast is called Broomgate, a curling scandal, and it's hosted by a semi-professional curler and fully professional comedian. John Cullen joins us now. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Carolyn.
Well, for those of us who didn't really know about this curling scandal, what can you tell us about Broomgate?
Yeah, well, we're pretty simple people, Carolyn, over in the curling world. So as you may imagine, something called Broomgate is a scandal about a curling broom. And yes, you heard that right. We're not making that up. It is a curling broom. And basically, in 2010, there was a brand new curling company that kind of came on the market with a new broom. It took them a few years to gain some market saturation, but once they got there and pros like Brad Guzhu started using the broom, they kind of figured out that if they used it in a certain way and with the fabric that was on the broom, it was essentially the most powerful curling broom that anybody had ever seen. And it made making shots so much easier than it had ever been before.
Can you explain kind of in simple terms what made this fabric and this new broom different from the traditional ones?
Sure, yeah. So, a lot of people think of curling ice and their mind goes to thinking of hockey ice, but curling ice is actually quite a bit different. So we sprinkle this treated water on top of the ice and it freezes in like little droplets. So curling ice isn't actually flat like hockey ice. There's like a bunch of little ridges on it. And so what sweeping does is it actually heats up those little pebbles, we call them, and it reduces the friction between the rock and the ice. And what this broom was able to do was, at a microscopic level, almost create like a little trough in the ice. And so the rock would actually follow kind of wherever you put the broom. So as long as you only had one person sweeping and they knew how to sweep the rock, instead of the rock going in like an even parabola, like a banana, like we're used to, you could make it almost look like a dragon's tail. You could make the rock go in and out and in and out. And it made, basically, as long as you were close enough as a shooter, the sweeper could make the shot for you. And as you might imagine, curlers were not super thrilled with this development. They still wanted the talent to be in the shooting portion of the game.
Mm-hmm. Now, Brad Guzhu, of course, is curling royalty in this province. What is his role in all of this and in your podcast?
Brad has a highway, okay? That's how big he is in St. John's. But yeah, he was actually the one who kind of blew the lid off the whole scandal. So there was a top team that had been using this broom for a year, and they'd been having a lot of success with it. And so Brad kind of wondered to himself, they were a good team, but they had like an unprecedented level of success. And Brad's a very smart guy. So he thought, where is this success coming from? And he sort of pinpointed that they had changed brooms. And so he started experimenting with the broom, and he was the one who figured out that when you sweep with this one sweeper, the broom is so powerful. And also people were using it the year before and having a lot of success. Did they know about this? And it just kicked off a lot of infighting, a technological arms race. And Brad was kind of in the middle of it.
And he spoke with you for this podcast, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, you'll hear his voice a bunch throughout the podcast. He tells a few great stories about how he got into curling, what curling has meant to him, and then obviously talks a lot about his role in Broomgate.
How do you think Broomgate ultimately changed the sport of curling?
Well, I think really what it comes down to is it really increased the professionalism of the sport. We were already starting to move towards the game being more professional, and then Broomgate really just kind of like kicked in the door on professionalism. And it made us all realize that, you know, as much as we want the game to be about the social fabric of the game and the friendships and the relationships that you form as a result of the game, that ultimately it is still something that people are competing for. They're competing for money. They're competing for world championships. They're competing for Olympic gold medals. And Broomgate was really sort of the last defense that got kind of kicked down. And now, you know, the sport is more professional than ever. So I would say that's the biggest change that came out of it for sure.
Well, it sounds like a fascinating podcast for both curling fans and non-curling fans. And it's available now, right?
It's out on CBC Podcast. The first 2 episodes just launched, and then we're going to be releasing 1 episode a week for the remainder of this month. There'll be 6 episodes total. So yeah, wherever you get your podcast, just search Broomgate, a curling scandal.
Okay, John Cullen, thank you so much for this.
Awesome. Thank you, Carolyn.
U.S. President Joe Biden delivered a speech at the Holocaust Memorial Museum in Washington today. He recounted Hitler's crimes, the murder of 6 million Jews during the Second World War. He also spoke about Hamas's October attack on Israel and the current rise of anti-Semitism.
This ancient hatred of Jews didn't begin with the Holocaust. It didn't end with the Holocaust either, or even after our victory in World War II. This hatred continues to lie deep in the hearts of too many people in the world.
This amid a surge of pro-Palestinian protests across the U.S., some of which have involved anti-Semitic chants and threats towards Jewish students and supporters of Israel. Biden says there's no place for anti-Semitism or threats of violence. Well, police are investigating a shooting overnight outside the Toronto home of Canadian musician Drake.
When officers arrived, they located a male who was suffering from an apparent gunshot wound.
Well, it happened around 2 in the morning local time. Police say a security guard outside the musician's home was shot and rushed to hospital in serious condition. A vehicle suspected of being involved in the shooting reportedly fled the scene. Police say they are in touch with Drake's team, but have yet to confirm if the rap star was home at the time. Investigators say it's still too early to determine a motive. Well, Canada Post says its finances are at a critical point. It lost a staggering $748 million last year, and the company says it will have even larger and unsustainable losses if its operating model doesn't undergo major changes. Marina von Stackelberg has the details.
All right. Canada Post says its financial situation is so grim, it could run out of cash in less than a year. The Crown Corporation has lost money 6 years in a row, a total of $3 billion.
Financially, things are very challenging.
The company says revenues keep declining as Canadians send less mail. And while online shopping has boomed, Canada Post is struggling to compete with new privately owned parcel companies. They hire gig workers who are cheaper and deliver packages on evenings and weekends. In a matter of years, Canada Post's share of the e-commerce market has been cut in half to just 29%.
We were doing a number of things to be able to better compete, but we didn't expect our market share to drop that quickly and for the competitors to take that much of the volume.
Unlike other Crown corporations, Canada Post isn't funded by taxpayers. It needs to sustain itself by making a profit. But unlike its private competitors, it has legal requirements, like delivering mail to all Canadians daily, even if it loses money doing it. Canada Post says it's time the federal government changed those laws.
How frequently do we deliver? If you have a community mailbox, a lot of people check it once or twice a week.
Ottawa won't commit to bailing out the company, but isn't ruling it out.
Whatever we need to support Canada Post in supporting Canadians, it will be envisaged, as we need Canada Post in the future.
The Canadian Union of Postal Workers is in the middle of contract negotiations. It wants a full return of door-to-door delivery and says the best solution to save Canada Post is for it to offer more.
CUPW has been fighting for a long time to do expansion of services at Canada Post, such as postal banking, as well as senior check-in.
But the company says in order to survive, it must focus on its core mandate, delivering mail and packages to all Canadians. To help pay for that, Canada Post did increase the price of a stamp this week to 99 cents. Marina von Stackelberg, CBC News, Ottawa.
And staying with Canada Post, 40 years ago, there was widespread controversy when super mailboxes were being introduced in suburban centres across the country. Residents were pushing back, furious at the move away from door-to-door delivery. We dipped into the CBC archives to bring you this report from 1984.
This is something almost 1 million Canadians can't do. For them, home mail delivery remains out of their grasp. They live in new suburbs that Canada Post services with super mailboxes.
We are being treated like second-class citizens.
Ann Derrett lives in Markham, just north of Toronto. She doesn't get home mail delivery. Every weekday, either she or her husband trudges about 100 meters to the neighborhood mailbox. Derrett hates that trek so much, she helped found RAM, Residents Against Mailboxes. This is part of her campaign.
The bumper sticker says, Ram Mulrooney Mailboxes.
These residents are really angrier at the federal government than at Canada Post. That's because it's the government which is pressuring Canada Post to make balancing the books rather than service the Crown Corporation's top priority. Now, the fight against super mailboxes has turned into a national cry for equality.
Super mailboxes have, in many respects, infringed, they have tarnished, they have made a major dent on the very principles that gave birth to our great country.
This super mailbox in nearby Pickering has made Canadian history of sorts. The man who lives in this house says that the box has reduced the value of his property, and the Ontario government agrees. It's cut his property taxes by 5%. Residents in 4 other provinces have also received tax cuts because of super mailboxes. David McWhirter says the box has deprived his family of its privacy and made the neighborhood a less desirable place to live.
I was furious the day it arrived. I was just angry to the point where I wanted to tie a rope around it and drag it back to the post office with my car.
The residents, meanwhile, are putting the federal government on notice. Give us home delivery or we'll work against you in the next election.
There, how's that?
Steve Paikin, CBC News, Markham, Ontario.
It's a craft that for many is a part of East Coast culture. For 40 years, Shirley Carey has been creating hooked rugs by hand, but as she nears her 100th birthday, she's decided it's time to hang up her hook. CBC visited Carey at her home in Avonport, Nova Scotia, to hear about her beloved hobby and see some of her work.
If you work at it really hard, you can hook a piece the size of your hand in a day. So it takes a long time. Shirley Carey is my name. I grew up in Wolfville. Then I became involved with rug hooking in 1980. It's quite important that you belong to the Guild, which, as I said, is centered in Halifax. And they operate a school once a year. This was something new to us, and I thought it would be nice to have some hooked mats, and that I could probably do a hooked mat in a week, little knowing what it would involve. But when I got there, I found it overwhelming. It was difficult to pull the loops up through this burlap. I get one up, pull the second one up, the first one would come out.
How long did it take you to make that first rug?
Oh, it was all the next summer, off and on, you know, when you would work at it, and into the next fall.
How did you feel when you finished that first piece?
Ready to do more. And wherever you went, you'd see something, a picture or somebody's painting that you would like to do a copy of. You always had to ask permission.
There's one piece and it's over there. I think it's a rug that has a pumpkin on it. Your mom would say, now go downstairs and pick a piece that you'd like to have. Well, is the pumpkin up for grabs? No, it's not.
I just wanted to keep it because I wanted the pumpkin so badly. I enjoy them more than I do flowers.
It's quite an art, then.
There really is, before you even get started. Yeah.
You're an artist then, too, thinking about the colors and things.
Not really. I just know that I like distinctive colors, bright colors, yeah. Don't like the dull shades.
So these are both one to grandchildren?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
The oldest.
And so how does it feel to share your work with others? Because it's on display Some of your pieces are on display right now in Woofle, and some pieces have been on display before.
Well, I do feel humble because there are others who does work much better than I do.
You've recently stopped rug hooking.
Well, I miss it greatly, and I miss all the other ladies very much, yeah, because we've always enjoyed getting together, yeah.
So that's a big part of it then, too.
Oh, yes, and everybody is very open with their work and very free with all their information. Since I have lived alone, it's company. Yeah, and we can always call on another person to help us out, give advice. They're all wonderful girls, as we call each other.
Now we're going to have a look at the long-range forecast and find out what's in store for later in the week. How is it looking?
It depends on where you are. Really, temperatures are going to warm up dramatically for parts of Labrador. We will see a little bit of sun here and there. Let's take a look what's going on. So Wednesday evening and Thursday, we'll start to see that weather across the west coast improve. And for Labrador, unfortunately, you're going to hang on to this cooler air for a little while longer. So the potential for some flurries again in the morning, maybe some showers towards the coast. And that will eventually ease up as we get into Thursday evening. Now, across the island, generally cloudy, chance of showers sticking around pretty much through most of the day. There will be a few peaks of sun in the mix, though, for some areas, particularly the west coast and maybe even along the northeast coast, depending on what time we start to see some of that clearing. But overall, daytime highs will be somewhere between 5 to 10 degrees, a little warmer, though, for the south coast. Marystown should hover around 12 degrees through the day. And temperatures towards coastal areas of Labrador, 2-3 degrees through the day. Further inland, you're looking at about 7 degrees in Happy Valley Goose Bay, so that will change the precipitation to more of a rain event. And some sunshine for Lab City, where you will hover around 8 degrees through the afternoon. Now, that area of low pressure will finally slowly start to depart to the east, but we've got another one just to the south that is going to bring some showers, especially to the south coast of the island. More of an easterly wind, though, for you, so it will just be rain at this point. It looks like maybe a little bit of fog patches as we head into the evening hours on Friday. Again, more northerly flow for the northeast coast, so you know what that means. Temperatures are going to be a tad cooler, only about 5 degrees in St. John's through the day, 7 in Gander. And again, we will see those showers work their way north as the night goes on. For Corner Brook, you should hover around 12 degrees with some sunshine to start the day. And eventually you'll see those showers move in. Now, Labrador, this is the start of a bit of a warming trend. Happy Valley Goose Bay will hover around 10 degrees, lots of sunshine across the big land through the day. However, you are going to stay a little cooler, though, as you head towards Cartwright, hovering around 3 degrees. So daytime highs in the long range forecast for St. John's and eastern Newfoundland will stay around 5 degrees for the most part, 9 by the time we get into Sunday. Now, it does look like we will see quite a bit of rain on Saturday, and Sunday we should see some clearing skies into the afternoon. Now, for Central, there's a little bit of a disagreement on this one. We could see temperatures a little warmer than this, but we also may see temperatures a tad cooler than this through Central and the potential for some snow. There's one model that's pointing at it. I'm not sticking with it at the moment, but I do have it in the forecast there for Sunday. And then for Western Newfoundland, you're looking at rain, maybe some flurries by Sunday. Now, for Labrador, there's your warm up. Look at that, 16, 17 degrees as we get into the weekend. And same thing for Western Labrador with plenty of sunshine across the board. Now, spring, these brooks come alive normally in the spring. And this is Black's Brook Falls in Trinity. And Raymond shared this shot with us. Thank you so much for that. If you have any weather photos that you would like to share with us, you can do that. You can send them to my Facebook page, but the best place to do it would be to email them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Very pretty. Thank you very much for that, Raymond. All right. Well, that is it for us. Thank you so much for spending part of your evening with us, and I hope you can join us again tomorrow.
Good night.